What's going on, guys? Today we're diving right into part 2 of the 2005 to 2014 S197 parking brake series. We're going to be talking about how to replace the parking brake handle assembly that's located right in the car. Let's get to it. Alright guys, so it's inevitable at some point you're going to have to replace the parking brake handle assembly in your 2005 to 2014 S197 Mustang. We're going to get right into it. I want to show you how to take this apart. If you are unfamiliar with what is wrong with your brake system, I strongly encourage you to go back and watch part 1 of the brake series video, which goes into all the failure points and kind of why they happen. And this first piece here is going to be about the parking brake handle assembly itself that is in the car. So I want to go through and show you how to do this. The beginning part is really going to be a matter of removing some trim, so let's go ahead and do that. Guys, one important note that I want to make is my car is a 2007. Now obviously 2005 to 09 looks similar, but 2010 and up is a different body style, even between 2010 and 12 versus 13 and 14. This means that the interior is going to be different, and so what I'm showing in this video is going to vary between the different model years and will not translate over to 2010 and newer Mustangs. It may not even translate over exactly in between the 2005 to 09 because Ford loves to change things partway through model years. So while I'm doing the best to illustrate this, just realize your interior may come apart differently, bolt sizes may be different, and obviously 2010 and up is going to be totally different. What is going to be similar is going to be how you're removing and installing the parking brake itself, and while sizes may be different, it's going to be the same basic idea, which I think is super useful for anyone who finds themselves in this situation. If you've done a radio install or anything like that, I think you'll have a little bit of knowledge that's going to help you get this job done. Alright, so the first part here is we're going to need to remove this top section here of the center console. Now if I move you back over here, we can take a look and we'll see on either side of the radio here are these little trim pieces. Well, in order to get these off, you're going to need to take off this top part, which normally if you were doing a stereo installation, you don't need to take the shifter ball off, but the thing is when you go to replace this assembly right here, you actually need to take the shifter ball off and you need to bring the whole top piece of the center console off. And then these trim pieces come off, because the way you're accessing this handle is by having everything out of the way. So you're doing a little more than you normally would by installing a stereo. So let's go ahead and do that. Now to remove your shifter ball, I would just use an adjustable wrench, and you're just going to want to make sure you get it right on the edge. Go right around so you can loosen that jam nut and screw your ball right off. And so then this boot is going to have to be loosened. You're actually going to have to take this nut off as well. And make sure you don't lose this stuff here, because you're going to absolutely need this to put your car back together. I'm just going to throw them up here on the dash for demonstration purposes. So now we've got this taken care of. So then what we need to do is, if we come back here, is at the rear of the console at each corner here, there's a Phillips head screw. So we're going to pop that off with a Phillips head screwdriver. And again, you want to make sure you do not lose these. So what I'm going to do is use one of these like little magnetic containers that you get from places like Harbor Freight, and just put all my components up on the dash with this. So once you've removed these two screws here, you're going to pull up on the edges of the console. This is just the top portion, and you're going to break it free. And so you can see how this moves. Now I'm going to turn you to the front. So the boot just pops right out, and then you'll have to kind of play with the handle angle. This is enough to just pop it out. So then all I'm going to do is take these parts and put them in the back seat and out of the way. So now that we've got this main portion, the top piece of the console removed, you can go ahead and see right here that you've now exposed more of the parking brake handle assembly, but you still have this top skeleton on the console. And the problem is, you can start to see some of the bolts that you can access, and I'll move the camera in a minute, but you still need to get the rest of the skeleton of the console out of here. So there's going to be a few bolts that you're going to have to remove, and then ultimately you'll be able to pull this entire unit out, which is why we needed to remove the shifter ball so that we could take that top piece off. So after you've removed that skeleton, where my fingers are right here, there are 2 bolts. You're going to need to replace them, and they are 7 millimeters. So you're going to want to go ahead and remove these. Okay, so we've loosened these 2 front. You're going to notice a little bit more play now in the console. Alright guys, so now that we have that front portion removed, we're going to turn our attention back here towards the center console itself. So inside there's a little mat. It's hard to see, I'm doing the best I can with the lighting. You need to pull the mat up. So once you've got that mat out of the way, you're going to look and you're going to see these 2 bolts in here, and they are both 10 millimeter bolts. You are going to need a long socket because they are recessed down into the console a bit, as you can kind of see these ovals, and there's a bit of a long stud coming up. So let's get those out of there. And I would recommend an extension because you're going to need to be able to clear the edge of the console. Okay. And that's what that nut looks like. It's got a built-in washer on it. And there's 2 of these. Okay, so now that we removed at the back that I just showed you, we removed the 2 10 millimeter nuts. And then before we removed these 2 7 millimeter screws. Now, these 2 trim pieces on either side we need to remove. I waited to remove these because we needed to remove the top part of the console, and then it's just, for me, it's just easier to remove the rest of the stuff. So now we need to go ahead and pull these off, and you just do this by hand. You can use a trim removal tool if you need it, but I don't think you really need it. You just pull them up. And you have your driver's side, and there's the passenger side. So there's 2 connections you need to remove. The first is to the power point, this gray connector here. It's just hard to show. There's no way for me to really show this. And then there's also one more to the, at least mine has an aux jack. So once that connection's removed, that should be everything. So you should have, it depends on your car. Mine have that aux jack, and then I also had that power. It's very easy to miss those. You'll see it as you pull it up. And I'm not seeing anything attached. And there's the skeleton, there's the remaining skeleton of the console. So once you have the shell and the guts of that console out, you're left and you're looking at pretty much what you need to do. Now, I'm going to move the camera in a minute to show you these, but what you're going to see right away when you look down where my fingers are, these are 2 studs and nuts. The stud is a 13 millimeter. Both of these are 13 millimeters, so you need to remove these 2 to pull out the handle. So these are your 13 millimeters right here. 13 millimeter. As you can see, I moved the seat forward so that it exposes. Let's see if I can turn on the light. So I moved, so if you look right there, down in that cavity, that little bolt poking out down there, that is 10 millimeter. And then if you move forward, right there, that's the other 10 millimeter. And you can see it's where the seat starts to get narrow. So like I said, you're going to want to move the driver's side seat forward until it's almost in line with the rear of the parking brake handle. So after you've gone ahead and disconnected the connections in the car, we're going to have to go down below the car. And so what you're going to be doing under there is you're going to need to first off make sure the wheels to your car are chalked. You do not need to support the car off the wheels. You can absolutely put it on ramps, and that would be how I would go ahead and do it. What I would suggest is putting the rear and elevating the rear so that you can get under it comfortably and work, because remember, you're going to be in the middle of the car because that's where the parking brake handle is. So guys, we're under the car and we're looking up at the parking brake cable where it mounts in the bottom floor pan of your car. Okay, and so right over here is the mount on the chassis built in. It's hard to see around the exhaust, but there's the mount. So as you can see, the cable comes down on the other side of the drive shaft, and then if we move on this side of the exhaust, you can see. Okay, so there is the assembly. Now this rear part here that we're aiming at right now, this is the part of the parking brake that breaks. That middle piece breaks, and as you can see on either side of that center cable, those are your rear parking brake cables, okay? This middle area here is where the parking brake retainer clips are. And so if we look right here, these clips that I'm pointing at need to be broken off with like a flat plate screwdriver or a pair of needle nose pliers, and you're going to have to move those because, as you can see right here, there's an indent, and that's where the actual cable pulls through and mounts on this part right here. This holds the parking brake in place, and these little fins flare up after you pull the cable forward through, and they lock so that the cable cannot come out. So you're going to have to remove these cables out of this adjustment here, and as you can see on the top piece, this is how you pull them out. You pull them out. You pull the cables out to each side and pull them out through those indents, and you're able to remove it. And then you have to reinstall. So when you go to reinstall this, you have to make sure that you pull the cable down and then pull it through here so it sticks in the retainer, and then you're able to reattach it to the rear parking brake cables. Hey guys, so that's going to do it. I hope that this part 2 for replacing the parking brake handle assembly is helpful. I know, like I said before, when this happened to me, I felt like I was in the dark, but honestly, after doing it, it's really not that bad. And once you have everything removed and you have the handle out, it's honestly as simple as installing the new one under the car. So I hope this helps, guys. We'll talk to you in the next one. Stay tuned for part 3, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.